It was a quiet night in 1973. In a small American town called Millbrook, a young woman named Margaret Lewis, just 22, was driving home from her night shift at a diner. She never made it back. Her car was found abandoned on a rural road, headlights still on, driver's door open, and her purse lying in the grass. A few hours later, police found her body in a nearby field. She had been assaulted and strangled. The town was shaken. Everyone knew everyone in Millbrook, but no one could imagine who would do such a thing. For months, detectives chased leads, questioned locals, and followed rumors. But eventually, the trail went cold. In the 70s, forensic science was primitive. There were no DNA databases, no digital records, and no CCTV cameras to help. Police collected what they could: a few fingerprints, a torn piece of fabric, and a cigarette butt found near her car. But there was nothing to match them to. The case became one of dozens sitting in dusty boxes inside the Millbrook Police Department's evidence room. As years passed, detectives retired, memories faded, and Margaret's case slowly disappeared from public attention. Margaret's parents died without ever knowing what happened to their daughter. But her younger brother, David Lewis, refused to let the story die. Every year on her birthday, he visited the police station, asking if there was anything new. Every time, he heard the same reply: "Sorry, David, nothing yet." Still, he never gave up hope. He kept every newspaper clipping, every letter from the police, every photo of his sister. It was his life's mission to find out who killed Margaret. By 2019, almost half a century had passed. But one young detective, Sarah Coleman, was reviewing old cold cases. When she opened Margaret's file, something caught her eye: the cigarette butt that had been preserved in the evidence box for decades. Unlike in 1973, forensic labs now had advanced DNA testing. Sarah requested to have it analyzed just to see if there was anything left to test. Weeks later, the lab called back. They had a partial DNA profile. The DNA profile didn't match anyone in the National Criminal Database, but Detective Coleman knew about genetic genealogy, the same technique that helped solve the Golden State Killer case. She uploaded the unknown DNA to a public genealogy site, and to her surprise, there was a distant match: a man in Texas who shared part of the same genetic markers. With the help of genealogists, the team began tracing the family tree generation by generation until one name stood out: Richard Hensley, a former factory worker who lived in Millbrook in the 1970s. Richard Hensley had died in 2011. He had no criminal record, no history of violence, nothing that ever drew suspicion. But records showed that he used to live just a few blocks from the diner where Margaret worked. And according to a neighbor's old statement, Richard smoked the same brand of cigarettes found near the crime scene. Detective Coleman obtained a court order to exhume his body for DNA comparison. It was a long shot, but it was their only chance. Weeks later, the results came back. The DNA from the cigarette butt matched Richard Hensley's DNA with 99.98% certainty. After 50 years, the case was finally solved. The man who had taken Margaret's life had gone to his grave without ever being caught, but the truth had finally emerged. When David Lewis got the call, he broke down in tears. For half a century, he had been waiting for justice. Now, even though the killer was gone, at least he finally knew the truth. As detectives dug deeper, they found something chilling. Richard Hensley had been fired from the factory shortly before the murder for harassing a female coworker. He had also been questioned but never charged in a similar assault case in a neighboring town. Back then, there was no way to link those crimes. Today, the pattern was obvious. He had been hiding in plain sight. When the news broke, Millbrook was stunned. Older residents remembered the fear that had gripped the town in 1973. For them, it was like reopening an old wound, but also healing it at the same time. A memorial service was held at the spot where Margaret's car was found. People who hadn't seen each other in decades came together to honor her memory. And for the first time in 50 years, Margaret Lewis's story had an ending. Detective Sarah Coleman later said in an interview, "It's never too late for justice. Evidence doesn't forget. Even if time passes, Truth has a way of resurfacing. Margaret's brother David now keeps her photo in his living room with a single candle burning beside it. He says he finally feels peace, knowing his sister's story was not lost to time. And that's the haunting truth behind one of America's longest unsolved mysteries. A cold case finally solved after 50 years.